the anti-Trump forces in the media are pretending to be really distraught about yesterday's resignation of Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis. The sky is falling. There's chaos in Washington. The only adult has left the room. You've heard the echoes. Beware.
A political earthquake is rolling through Washington as the Trump administration sinks further into chaos.
There are no more grown-ups in the room.
And you have America, Mika, in retreat across the globe, and the most extraordinary resignation in modern American history, certainly in the past 40 years.
The Democrats on the Hill, who for 10 years were demanding our troops come home from Iraq, they now sound like they went to the Paul Wolfowitz School of Foreign Policy.
I think this will be considered one of the worst foreign policy blunders of this century, certainly of this century today.
No, who knows why the president is making this decision today. The way that he did it is totally ham-handed, and it does make the country weaker.
A decision made in a cavalier fashion in terms of our allies in the fight against terrorism, a decision that is dangerous.
I'm thoroughly confused now. Didn't they elect Obama not once but twice, in part based on his pledge to bring the troops home?
Over the last decade, we have spent $1 trillion on war at a time of rising debt and hard economic times. Now we must invest in America's greatest resource, our people. We must unleash innovation that creates new jobs and industries while living within our means. America, it is time to focus on nation building here at home.
Oh, I want to stand up and cheer. In fact, at one point in 2011, Pelosi and other top Democrats were criticizing Obama for the slow pace of his troop withdrawal.
Many of us would like to see this go faster than the path that was laid out. However, it may. And with the proper progress, whether it's on the civilian side, on the governance side, on the anti-corruption side, it may well be that we can have a quicker drawdown.
She's very impatient for the drawdown there. But when Donald Trump is president, all the old principles of the Democrat Party, they fly out the window. Now, further, I think it's wise to focus on the substance in Mattis's letter, where he claimed, for instance, our strength as a nation is inextricably linked to the strength of our unique and comprehensive system of alliances and partnerships. While the U.S. remains the indispensable nation in the free world, we cannot protect our interests or serve that role effectively without maintaining strong alliances and showing respect to those allies. Well, before we rush to engrave those words on a tablet at Independence Hall, now let's think about Mattis's claim there. While his deep and abiding sense of public service and military heroism is inspiring, we all love that part of Mattis, the argument that America's strength is in our alliances kind of stands in contrast to what our framers believed. I reread George Washington's farewell address, believe it or not, on the plane on the way down here. And all Americans should read it, I think, at least a few times a year. It's stunningly beautiful, it's wise, it's humble, and in many ways it's prophetic. Now, Mattis is a guy who himself is steeped in military history. He knows that Washington warned against entanglements abroad that would ultimately put our nation at home at risk and wouldn't end up safeguarding the country's fragile independence. He said the following: "It is our true policy to steer clear of permanent alliance with any portion of the foreign world." Wow, it's hard to take that in now, right? That's what Washington said. But remember, Thomas Jefferson echoed the same sentiment in his own inaugural message. He said, "Peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none." Washington also warned us to, quote, "avoid the necessity of those overgrown military establishments which, under any form of government, are inauspicious to liberty and which are to be rewarded as particularly hostile to Republican liberty." Of course, the point would be driven home 161 years later, after World War II and after the Korean War, by President Eisenhower. In his own farewell address, he said, "We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. Now, I'm not here tonight to say we shouldn't work with other countries. Of course we do, and we should. And we should live up to our commitment to help our allies. But it's also the case we're not in a financial position to rev up the Team America World Police Squadrons either. And Mattis has said himself, including in his resignation missive, that we can't be the policemen of the world. Whenever we take action abroad, especially military action, it should be based on clearly defined goals with a specific and clear national security objective, which, once reached, allows for an American withdrawal from the region. The argument from so many of the Bush Republican types is, well, we can't pull our troops out because then chaos will ensue. Well, by that thinking, we'll never leave anywhere we deploy because chaos is always a possibility, especially in tumultuous places like the Middle East. My friends, Donald Trump's foreign policy is based in principled realism, not endless interventionism. We have no pressing national security interest in Syria now. We fulfilled our objective. We smashed ISIS, a success that the administration shares with General Mattis.